Turn the radio on.
You're right.
Oh, we stood all the ugly people.
You hear okay, Colin? Okay, great. I'd like to call the April 17, 2012 meeting of the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners to order. And as always, I'd ask you to join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Tonight, the invocation will be done by Vice Chair Stanley.
Pray with me, please. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to Thee tonight with humble hearts. We would ask Thy special blessing, O Lord, on the family of our fine clerk, Kathy Hughes, whose husband is in the hospital as we speak, under the care of our fine heart surgeons over there to get him fixed. And we all pray for his quick recovery. Bless them, Lord. They're just great people. We ask Thy blessing on our meeting, too, my God. Guide and direct us in all that we do. Forgive our many sins. In His name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by the Board, it's the duty of every board member to avoid actual and apparent conflicts of interest. Anybody have any known or apparent or possible conflicts of interest with respect to any matter coming on before the Board today?
No, sir.
We have Commissioner Jones joining us by telephone. She is out of town. I'd like to recognize Sheriff Duncan, who will be speaking later, and also Mayor Vihan, our elected officials here today. Is there a motion to follow the consent agenda and the overall agenda as printed?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion by Commissioner Peterson, a second by Vice Chair Stanley to follow the agenda as submitted. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, no. The motion carries 5-0. Next up, we have good news. Gibby Harris, tell us about our health ranking and how I think you have a video, how we're doing on our health and what we need to do better.
Thank you for having me here this evening. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about these issues. This is Public Health Month, and it's an opportunity for us just to talk to you briefly about the work that public health does. Reminder that public health is everywhere. What we do through the health department is one component of it, but all of the partners that we work with in the community, the faith-based organizations, the community-based organizations, the hospitals, the doctor's offices, the different government agencies, in addition to businesses, everyone's involved in public health on a daily basis. And our job is really to try to organize and coordinate that and to focus on the issues that are important in our community. So that's what we are about, and we have a brief video for you, and then I'll talk to you about the county health rankings for a minute.
Thank you.
Good.
I want to thank Kathy Hughes' staff and working with us to produce that video. I think it's very helpful to give people the broad idea of what public health is and the work that it does in our communities. So how are we doing? Okay. The county health rankings, we've had those for 3 years now. Just a reminder, these are done by Robert Wood Johnson and the University of Wisconsin. What they've done is developed a handful of measures that are implemented across all counties to determine how we do in our communities and how the health of our communities are faring. We are compared across all 100 counties in North Carolina. So I'll remind you, you have in front of you 2 documents. There's one on the front and one on the back. They tell you a little bit different story. The health outcomes that you see at the top really give a picture of our community right now. How healthy are we? And the health factors give us a picture of how healthy we can be in the future. The health factors are split into 4 categories: health behaviors, clinical care, social and economic factors, and physical environment. 3 years ago, we ranked 25th in the state of North Carolina. This year, we're 14th. So we're moving in the right direction. You have to remember, though, that's 14th in a state that ranks 32nd in North Carolina. So we still have work to do. What we've done on these documents is we've put things in colors and smiley faces to help people get this at a glance. The green shows you where we're doing well. The red, work where we need more effort. A couple of things that I did want to point out to you, though. If you look at the back page, the back of the page that compares us over the 3 years, you'll see that we've improved in a number of areas. Adult smoking is improving. The work that's been done there with smoke-free bars and restaurants, I do believe, has helped with that. Motor vehicle crash death rates are slowly improving. Our sexually transmitted rates are going down very slowly, but at least moving in the right direction. And some of the work that our community partners do, as well as our staff in terms of outreach in the community and working with teens and others to educate them around these sorts of issues, I think has helped there some, in addition to our teen birth rates, which are slowly coming down. The uninsured has improved a little bit since last year. Preventable hospital stays continue to improve. Diabetic screening, our mammography screening, our BSEP program, breast and cervical cancer prevention program, is considered one of the best in the state. We are seeing around 1,900 women this year through that program. High school graduation rate is improving. Our schools have done a lot of work, as well as some of our community partners, to help in that arena, and we are seeing some increase in the number of people who have some college. One of the areas that's a little difficult for us, and it's because of the way they measure things, is in the physical environment section. We rank in the bottom half of the state, which you would not, you wouldn't anticipate that if you live in Buncombe County. But the issue here is how they measure things. Around the unlimited access to healthy foods, they look at chain grocery stores and how close people live to those stores. It differs between rural areas and urban areas, but the reality is they don't take into account farmers markets, tailgate markets, the little corner grocery stores we have out in our rural communities. So we will never do very well in that category while we're continuing to improve our use of local foods in this community, which is where we want to move. Access to recreational facilities is another area. They measure there. They look at facilities that provide exercise equipment and sports activities. So the fact that we have the Blue Ridge Parkway that runs through our community, we're working on greenways, we have lots of good parks, we've got a city and a county park recreation program. None of those things are accounted for in that measure as well. So again, things that are important to our community don't get included. You've got to remember they're measuring something that has to be able to be measured across the entire country. So I don't know whether those will ever improve. So we're looking at other things we can measure to help us understand how we do in those categories. The ozone and the particulate matter days, those are things we don't have a lot of control over. A lot of our air comes from Tennessee, and so far we haven't been successful at stopping that at the border. So we'll have to continue to deal with that particular issue as well. We actually do fairly well in the western part of the state. We have 7 counties out of 16 that rank in the top 25. But we also have five counties that rank in the bottom 25. So we're continuing to look at that as well. A couple of things that I did want to mention, things that will help us as we move forward. We can continue to work with our partners in the community to improve health. We're continuing to look for ways to better organize those partnerships and to leverage those resources better in our community. We have new partnerships in the region. We're working on a community health assessment on a regional level with 16 other counties, both with the health departments and the hospitals in those counties. So we'll have sort of a consistent measure of the situation across the region as we move forward. It will also help us focus some of our activities and efforts regionally. In addition to that, we're working through the community transformation process. It's funded through the federal government down through the state. We're working with an 11-county region to work on physical activity, nutrition, tobacco, and some clinical areas. So we're hoping all of these things will improve our ability to move up from 14 as we move forward, and again to look at some of those national issues that we're not faring terribly well with. The last thing that I wanted to mention is that you have a very creative and dedicated public health staff. We have some excellent people that work for us in this county and that work well with our partners in the community. You've got a very committed and energetic board that works with us on a daily basis to make sure that we're doing the best job that we possibly can. They hold our feet to the fire. And we also have a very supportive county management and county commissioners, and that helps us get our work done. We've got a few of our leadership team here today. Y'all stand up. Come on. Dr. Mullendor, our medical director, Linda T. Tamble, who runs our clinics, and Eddie Shook, who's with preparedness and environmental health. Nell Gregory's not able to be here today. She's with her family right now, which is part of having a healthy community is paying attention to your family's needs. So we sort of forgave her not being here today. And we also have our board chair, Suzanne Swanger, who's with the school system, in addition to Carol Peterson, who serves on our board as well. So we appreciate all of the efforts of those individuals and all of our staff. So thank you again for your commitment and your support. We couldn't be moving up in the rankings without the support of the county commissioners and county management, and we appreciate that greatly. Any questions?
Yeah, are there any surprises to you as health director?
Not really. We know we have areas that need a lot of attention, and we have restructured within the department to help us better focus on those areas. We're very concerned about making sure that we have good birth outcomes in this community, because if our children don't start there, it's hard to get them where we need them to be as they grow. We need good, healthy families, both emotionally, physically, economically, to make sure that those children have the environments that they need as they move forward and grow into young adults in this community. We're working very closely with DSS and some of our other partners to see what we can do to improve those situations. We know that physical activity and nutrition continues to be an effort for us. We have a very healthy community compared to a lot of others in terms of being physically active and having access to those local foods, but we do have pockets in our community where we still have a lot of work to do in those areas. Tobacco is still the #1 preventable cause of death. We continue to put a lot of emphasis on making sure that our restaurants and bars are smoke-free, and we have a youth group that's working to try to have Belshare go smoke-free, probably not this year, but maybe next year. So a lot of efforts in those arenas that we think will help move us forward.
Do you feel our policy about smoking in Buncombe County has made a difference here?
I think it has made a difference. We're continuing to look at that policy. The board actually talked about it at the last Board of Health meeting. We do think it can be strengthened, and so you may be hearing from us soon about that.
All right.
Good, good.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
Good job.
Mr. Jones, any questions?
That sounds like a great report.
All right.
Thank you for
Thank
the time.
you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris.
Next, we have our proclamations. Is Terry Giordani here? Giordani, I wasn't even close. Sorry about that. Let me, why don't you come on up and, please, yeah, both y'all come on over. That's what it looks like on this side. I didn't over here too much. I have a proclamation I'd like to read. Stroke Awareness Month. Whereas stroke is the fourth leading cause of death in the U.S. and number one leading cause of adult obesity, striking over 795,000 Americans each year, and whereas stroke costs this country more than $72 billion annually in in medical treatment and lost productivity, but far more regrettable is the immeasurable suffering it brings victims and their families. And whereas stroke can often be avoided by controlling its risk factors and paying attention to stroke's warning signals, which can prevent serious damage to a victim's health and may even save a life. However, few people know how to recognize a stroke or what to do if someone is having one. And whereas because so many of the risk factors for stroke can be minimized by personal effort, public awareness is the key weapon in conquering stroke. And whereas Buncombe County Emergency Management Services and mission hospitals are working to educate our citizens about stroke prevention in the ways to identify the signs of stroke, and are promoting Go Gray in May because Gray Matters, Gray Matters campaign. And it's in gray, of course. Whereas to encourage citizen awareness of stroke, this board has been asked to proclaim May as Stroke Awareness Month. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of Commissions for Buncombe County as follows, that May 2012 is hereby proclaimed Stroke Awareness Month in Buncombe County, and this board hereby encourages all citizens to learn the signs of stroke, monitor their health for the risk factors of stroke, and to promote stroke awareness in our community by participating in the Go Gray in May events. I'd like to move the adoption of this proclamation. Been a motion by the chair, second by Vice Chair Stanley. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? We will adopt the proclamation by a 5-0 vote. And if you could talk to us a little bit about, here is the proclamation, and thank you both for being here. Tell us a little bit about these stroke information here we have.
Well, thank you very much, Commissioner. Yes, we want everyone to recognize a stroke because early treatment can make a difference in the outcome. And a simple way to recognize a stroke in about 95% of all cases is to think FAST. And that's an acronym that is an evaluation of the patient. So F is for face, ask the person to smile. If there's some asymmetry of the smile or drooping, think possible stroke. A is for arm, so you look for arm weakness. Typically it's on one side or the other, so arm or leg weakness. S is for speech, ask the person to repeat a simple sentence back, like you can't teach an old dog new tricks, or the sky is always blue in Carolina. And T is for time, so time is very important. It's time to call 911. And I would like to publicly thank Terry Giordano for her unselfish, timeless efforts. She has worked very hard to make this proclamation come about because we on the front line see the effects of stroke. And I'd also like to thank the Public Health Department for the efforts they're doing to improve the health of Buncombe County residents because many of the things that she alluded to are the risk factors that lead to stroke. So I think, again, partnership and working together, we can make a difference. So thank you very much. Please.
Can I mention one
Yes,
event?
please do.
I just wanted to mention an event that's going to be taking place in May for Stroke Awareness Month, Go Gray in May, because gray matter matters. On May 25th, there's a collaborative effort for a community stroke screen. It's being offered free to the public. It is by appointment only. Mission Foundation donated the money to have 100 participants come through to have a stroke screen done. There'll be a bunch of different educators and booths there for information for the public after they get their health screen done. And then there'll be a neurologist from Mission Hospital that's going to come and give, I think it's 3 15-minute educational talks of what those numbers mean. Once those participants get those numbers and learn what the risk factors are for stroke, he'll give them an educational talk about, well, what to do now. And that's going to be held at Trinity Baptist Church on May 25th from 8 a.m. to noon. It's also Mission Hospital is providing the nurses and the technology and the support to have this done. Mission Foundation, again, like I said, is going to donate the monies to have this done. Buncombe County EMS and AB Tech paramedic students are going to volunteer with blood pressure checks and just helping to flow through. So I'd just like to make that known that they can call Mission Hospital. Do you know the number offhand?
They call
213-6163 to schedule that appointment. And we're trying to provide that to those that don't have the insurance, that can't go to their primary care physician and have this done under insurance purposes. So
Let me ask you, ladies, are there different types of strokes, and are there strokes that maybe people have and they don't recognize it? Then I'll
definitely.
Go ahead. Why don't y'all talk about that?
I'll just offer a couple statistics and then let Robin take it. Over 795,000 strokes occur annually in the United States, and like the proclamation states, it is the #1 cause of disability in the United States. There's 2 different kinds. The most common that we see that a big difference can be made with time, and that's it's called an ischemic stroke, and that's when a blood clot goes to the brain. Everybody's familiar with heart attacks, where the blood clot lodges in the heart. This lodges in the brain, and that's where that act fast is going to come in and catch 93% of those strokes. The other type is called a hemorrhagic stroke, and that's where you actually get a bleed in the brain. And I'll let Robin talk a little bit more about that.
So there are different types of stroke, to answer your question, but many of them have similar symptoms, but symptoms can go unrecognized. And again, it's really important for everyone to know the warning signs of a stroke, but it's just as important for me to know the warning signs in case it happens in her. Because if you're having a brain attack, which we call a stroke, typically we get your attention, we call it a brain attack. If she has trouble speaking, it may be difficult for her to call 911 or to say what's going on. So I need to recognize those warning signs. And I think that may have answered your question.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this.
And also, it's not just, there's a misconception too that stroke only affects the elderly population, and that's not true. There's actually a very large percentage that attacks individuals under 65. So we've seen that in a lot of our representatives in different government agencies. Not too far off in the distance was Senator Kirk from Illinois, 52 years old. Attorney General Beau Biden out of Delaware, Joe Biden's son, Vice President Joe Biden's son, had a stroke. So it doesn't just affect, we think elderly, but it also affects the younger generation as well. So.
Thank you so much. Any other
I
questions?
appreciate your time.
Excellent
presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next, we have Motorcycle Awareness Month, and Mr. Williams, you come down. Vice Chair Stanley is going to present this.
Roger, how are you? Good to see you again, Hoss. Sir. We, proclamation here we want to read. They let me do this because they knew at one time I rode a hog several years ago. Well, actually, it's 56 years ago because my wife of 56 years said, we'll get married when you get rid of that bike. So the bike went, and I got my wife for 56 years at least. Proclamation of Motorcycle Awareness Month. Whereas over the past 12 years, motorcycle fatalities have increased 150%, as reported in the United States Department of Transportation's Fatality Analysis Report. And whereas in 2010, the National Highway Safety Commission reported 1,319 traffic fatalities for North Carolina. 191 of those were motorcycle-related fatalities. And whereas the Buncombe County's chapter of Concerned Bikers Association of North Carolina has requested that the month of May be proclaimed Motorcycle Awareness Month, whereas these motorcyclists organize and participate in motorcycle safety education, rider training programs, and public awareness programs. And whereas Ashland and Buncombe County motorcyclists have banded together to actively promote positive image of motorcyclists, and during the month of May we'll be challenging drivers to look twice to save a life, and to lobby the North Carolina General Assembly to allow a public service message in support of this campaign to be displayed on electronic message boards on our roadways. Whereas this board feels that it is in the best interest of all citizens to promote motorcycle safety awareness and to foster a sense of brotherhood and sisterhood among all users of our county roadways. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of Commissioners for the County of Buncombe as follows: that the month of May 2012 be proclaimed Motorcycle Awareness Month in Buncombe County, that all citizens in Buncombe County hereby are encouraged to join active motorcyclists in an effort to improve traffic safety, increase motorcycle awareness, and that this commission will join other counties to encourage the North Carolina General Assembly to use electronic message boards to encourage motorists to be more aware of the dangers of motorcyclists and to look twice to save a life. Chairman, I move the adoption.
Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Stanley, a second by Commissioner Peterson. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The proclamation is adopted 5-0.
Once again, I want to thank the county commissioners for doing this. I think this is the 12th year we've done this, or 12th year I know that I've done it, and I think it was done a few years before that. And of course, I go before the city next week to get it, so I've got it from both municipalities. In the past, we've done one billboard we've always put up. This year, we're having 4 of them. We're going to have one that's going to be on Patton Avenue, across from Kmart there above Kentucky Fried Chicken. There's going to be one out on 70 right at Warren Wilson. Another one right there at Eaton, and then one across from Stevens Upholstery. And would like everybody to take the opportunity, if you can, to contact your representatives and push to have this message put up on electronic signboards. And I know all you know that's how we get it done. You've got to be heard. People's got to call and and request it so that we got the presence there. And of course, one of the other things we have going on is our motorcycle safety and awareness program that we take into the high schools. That's still going very strong. We're still working on trying to get to the state or the agencies to take this over, because the only way we're doing it right now is through volunteers. We got a great group of volunteers doing it, but we can't hit all the schools and get all the students, and that's our goal. And already this year, I've had 4 friends that have been injured because of unaware drivers. I mean, already, and it's like we're not even into May yet. Biggest problem that I see going on is, of course, we all know it's the cell phones, distracting texting. And matter of fact, there yesterday, I had a guy just coming right by up here. He missed me by 6 inches, cutting over. Had no idea, sitting there on a cell phone. No idea I was there. The biggest thing too that I see is driving has become almost second nature to people. I mean, it's like we get in the car, we're driving, we're not actually thinking about driving. We're thinking about what we're going to do. We get home, something at work and stuff, and it's like people have gotten away from it. And that's part of what we're trying to teach in this motorcycle awareness program, is to be more aware, is to actually have your mind on what you're doing when you're driving. And one of the goals is also, once we can get going on this, is to actually take it to some civic groups. And I'd actually love to have it to where at one time we could put this together and do it for all the county employees, city employees, just whatever we can do to improve it. But like I say, once again, I'd like to thank y'all for doing this. It's going to help us get the word out, and all we can do helps. Right here, I've got these keychains that y'all have. Just take one, pass it down, whatever's left, put it on the table up there for anybody else. And that's basically, it's a little keychain motor saying it goes along with what our billboard's going to be. It's going to be a different color, though. But once again, I want to thank you.
Thank you,
Roger.
Okay, next up we have Greg Mace, and if you could bring your guest with you. And Commissioner Peterson's going to give a proclamation on Special Olympics Day.
Hey, Greg. How are you, sir? And this is really a pleasure for me, and one of the highlights of the year is going to Robertson High School and attending the Special Olympics Day. And what you really need to picture is we're on the athletic field at Robertson High School, and they have signs for I'm not sure how many schools across the way, and the children come and they get off the bus and they gather at their school sign, and they are so proud. It truly is like the Olympics. I mean, there's no question about that. There are tents set up around, the schools bring their picnics, the children gather there, they gather under their signs, they're really excited, and they are announced school by school to walk across the field, school by school, and just raising Cain as they come across the field. It's so very exciting. This is such a, you talk about Special Olympics. This is Special Olympics, truly, truly Special Olympics. Then you have a little program where people do, you know, a little speech here and there and a proclamation or two, and then they walk the track with their school, or they are helped with some of the young people from Robertson High School who come and help them go around the track. It is so very special, not only for the athletes who are participating, but the students at Robertson High School, who I know personally, this is so meaningful to them because they want to be a part of this day. And I know I'm supposed to read this proclamation, but I want to set it up for you and to tell you, and Ray Bailey, hush, to tell you how really special this is. Right, Greg? Okay, now I'm going to read this proclamation. Okay. County of Buncombe Proclamation of May 3rd, 2012 is Special Olympics Day. Whereas over 500 athletes will gather for the Buncombe County Special Olympics Spring Games on May 3rd, 2012. And whereas athletes will compete in the sports of powerlifting, developmental aquatics, and athletics to celebrate their gifts and abilities. And whereas many of these specially gifted athletes will show how they are able to succeed and to inspire. And whereas through Buncombe County Special Olympics, friendships will be established between volunteers and athletes, and with the help of a host of citizen volunteers, the athletes from Buncombe County will enjoy the fellowship of their fellow Olympians, as well as earn the respect of many others. And whereas the Buncombe County Special Olympics Spring Program will be promoted throughout the county in an effort to increase volunteer support and awareness, now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of Commissioners for the County of Buncombe as follows: that May 3rd, 2012 be and is hereby proclaimed Special Olympics Day in Buncombe County. That citizens will be urged to take part in the events of this special and inspiring day, and that the athletes enjoy the competition and compete in it without injury. That this proclamation be effective upon its adoption. Mr. Chairman, I move the adoption of this proclamation.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Peterson, second by Vice Chair Stanley. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The proclamation is adopted 5-0.
Thank you very much for this. I'd just like to say the spring games are going to be May the 3rd at the T.C. Robertson High School. We have 425 athletes roughly. They're going to be in competition with track and field, running events, just anything we can get them to do. There's volunteers from all the schools all over the county, and private individuals will come and help out also. So come and support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Folks, that's worthwhile to visit to get out if you can. I've seen it several times, and it is a sight to behold.
All right, next we have Commissioner Bailey going to present our Foster Care Awareness Month, and Ms. Foster, you'll come up and podium.
I am delighted to present this proclamation for Foster Care Month for the month of May 2012. And the proclamation reads, whereas families serve as the primary source of love, identity, self-esteem, and support, and represent the very foundation of our community. And whereas in Buncombe County the lives of hundreds of children and families are disrupted every year by crisis, or safety issues in their homes. And whereas in Buncombe County there are over 200 children and youth in foster care, which provides a temporary, safe, secure, and stable home with a compassion and nurturing foster care or kinship care family. And whereas foster families in Buncombe County open their homes and hearts to children whose families are in crisis, play a vital role helping children and families heal and reconnect and prepare children for successful adulthood. And whereas foster families are an invaluable resource and perform an extraordinary service by working in partnership with families, children, and service providers to nurture children and provide an opportunity for healthy growth, development, and permanence. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Board of Commissioners for the County of Buncombe as follows: that the month of May 2012 be proclaimed Foster Care Month in Buncombe County, and that all citizens be urged to recognize the important role foster parents play in the life of our community and to volunteer their talents and energies on behalf of the children in foster care. I move adoption of this proclamation.
Second.
Been a motion by Commissioner Bailey, a second by Commissioner Peterson. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The proclamation is adopted 5-0.
Turn that down for her, Lee. There you go.
Thank you for this proclamation and honoring May as Foster Care Awareness Month. Our foster parents in our community do a fantastic job of taking care of kids who have to be away from their families for a short period of time, hopefully. They work with us, the department, as well as partner with other agencies in the community, working really hard to help children to be able to exit foster care is our goal. Right now, there are over 200 children in foster care. In Buncombe County, at Buncombe County DSS, we have approximately 91 foster families. So there's always that need to have more foster families so that children can be in the most home-like environment. So I would just put a plea out there and urge people in the community, if you've even thought about being a foster parent, don't be afraid to just pick up the phone and call us. The number is 250-5868. If you have questions, we can answer those questions. We have free foster parent classes that go on each quarter. There's an orientation class that you can attend and just learn about what it takes to be a foster parent, and is that something that you could do. So I would just urge people to call. The need is always there. And again, I just want to thank you, thank our director, and we have a lot of other folks here from Buncombe County DSS that I would just like to say thank you to everybody here for honoring this month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, next we have a public hearing. Donna Cottrell is going to tell us about the proposed amendment to the Community Development Block Grant from the Department of Commerce, North Carolina. Donna?
Chairman Gant, members of the board, Buncombe County applied for the 2010 Community Development Block Grant funding, and we received those funds as of April of 2011. It was our fourth cycle of funding. In our application, we said that we would do 2 replacements, 1 rehab, and 8 emergency repairs. But circumstances changed for one of our applicants. Her health declined, and her family felt like that replacement of the house was not really the best option for her, that moving her into family was the best place for her. So that created a need for us to change our application. So we would like to change it to 1 replacement, 2 rehabs, and 8+ emergency repairs. So the purpose of this public hearing is to seek comment from the public and to seek approval for amending our application to the Department of Commerce. So we would seek approval of the board to make this change.
All right. Thank you. Are there any questions before we start our public hearing? All right. We will get started. I've got 5:10. We'll take 3 minutes. Anybody wants to speak on this amendment to the CDBG Community Development Block Grant Amendment? Any members of the public wish to be heard? If not, I will declare our public hearing closed at 5:11.
Move approval.
A motion by Commissioner Bailey, a second by Commissioner Peterson to approve the amendment as proposed. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The amendment is adopted by a 5-0 vote. Thank you, Donna. Next, we have County Manager Report, and I think we have Dr. Dunn here to talk to us about the GED program at AB Tech. Is that the program today? Okay. Dr. Dunn, good to have you.
Thank you, sir. Brought a guest with you.
Good. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I understand there's been some previous public comments about our GED program, and I thought rather than listening to me, we probably need to go to the source, which is the person who oversees all the academic programs at the college, including the GED program, and that is Melissa Quinley, who is our Vice President for Academics. And Melissa, like I said, oversees everything that we do instructional-wise. And she will assure you that not only is the program not closing, but it's in good health and looking forward to the future. So, Melissa, it's all yours.
And could you even start off with the basics? Some people, I think everybody knows what GED is. Just kind of tell us even the basics. Start very early.
There's a basic skills program, which is originally under continuing ed. We have it under instructional services that is serviced by a state block grant, and that includes the areas of adult basic education, ABE, GED, which is the general education diploma, and that's really the diploma that students that may have dropped out of high school many years ago, or in some cases maybe not so many years ago, can come back to the college and for free, take GED classes in order to be able to get that diploma, which in some cases is needed for employment, continuing on in education and so forth. We also service through Basic Skills ESL students for those of whose second language is English, and also for the compensatory ed students that we serve. So that's the general basic skills program that we have. And I think the question came up about a misconception about the discontinuance or the reducing of GED program in particular. Just like each year, I guess, you have to manage budgets, and because the Basic Skills program is a block grant, there's a set amount of money that we have to manage within that, and sometimes we have more students, we may need more programming, so programs would run, we would extend hours or have a certain number of hours, and in some cases the budget's not quite there to service everybody and the number of hours that we need. So in order to manage the budget between really January of this year and the end of the fiscal year in June 30th, we had to curtail a few hours. None of the programming was discontinued. The programming continues, and students are still being serviced at the locations where all the GED classes ran before. In most cases, it was maybe an hour a day that the programming was curtailed, and this is really just until we get through the rest of this budget cycle into the next year, and then there will be another block grant given, and adjustments will be made accordingly, and likely, at least from what I'm told, that we will go back to the full programming that we have. One of the questions I know that came up had to do with we did not run programs during the spring break that the college normally takes, and when we investigated, it turns out that often the reason we run them during spring break is because we've had so many inclement weather days prior to that where we also didn't run programming, but this year we were lucky and didn't have all those inclement weather days, so we were able to not run the programs just like the regular curriculum programs during spring break. Other counties around us do something similar. They don't run their GED classes during spring break, and also take some time off in between semesters, in between terms, just like curriculum classes do. So there's nothing unusual about this. In fact, if you look at between January and today, compared last year to this year, we actually ran more classes. I think we had 5 days we were off last year, mostly due to inclement weather, and then some spring break time on either end, and this time it was only 4 days that we didn't run complete days of programming, and I think we had one late start day, so that may have been a couple of hours or an hour and a half or so. So the program is still there. Students are still coming. We're still serving the students, and we'll continue to do so.
Good.
Any questions?
Good to hear. Great program.
So even with your budget, there's no plans to cut back anything other than kind of the normal cycles and the...
No, it is not. And again, because, our budgets are state block grants, especially for basic skills is, and so we, from one year to the next, sometimes it's down a little bit, sometimes it's up a little bit, depending on the students that we serve, and we know that sometimes things are, as they come out of the state, we're not sure until we actually see that budget, and then we try to serve our students as best we can within the budget that we have.
Melissa, so folks have a thought about the numbers. Can you give us any numbers?
I didn't off the top of my head, and I should have gotten the total number of students, but we have about around 415 what we call full-time equivalent students that operate through the GED program, and that translates, it's probably, 800 maybe individual type of students, but don't quote me on that last piece because that one I'm not exactly sure of. But obviously we serve many, many students in multiple locations. So all of those locations continue to operate, and faculty members are serving them there.
I think it's good to know the numbers of people who are being served by this program.
Right, and I can certainly have more specific those. One of the things that was somewhat surprising to me, for example, in our compensatory ed program, we have over 150 students that we serve throughout the year in compensatory ed, which is not a larger program than you might guess for the county, but I think one of the things that Basic Skills speaks to is that we're able to serve members of the community that come in not speaking English as their first language and help them get to skills that allow them to move on. In fact, we had one student that started with us in 2006 in ESL and has just about ready to complete her degree at Western Carolina, I think in criminal justice, and became a citizen last year. So we're helping those students move along. We help the compensatory ed students that need help in just those basic life skills, and then of course helping students that need to move and complete their GED so they can move into curriculum classes at the college of their choice, hopefully AV Tech.
I was going to say one more thing you might want to add, Melissa, is the change we did last year, because Basic Skills, GED used to stand alone. We've actually moved that under our developmental program so the students see that as just one milestone as they go toward their degree. So we've actually increased our focus on this program in some ways.
And we had a larger percentage of GED students that transitioned to curriculum classes this year than we'd ever had in the past. And part of that is because now that the Basic Skills program is actually under the Instructional Services Division, and specifically under the area that works with developmental education, they've really done a lot more partnership in getting those students out of GED and then straight on into curriculum classes, because we know that that's really the transition that's going to help them be successful in finding a job and getting to work in the community.
Okay, any other questions? In ESL, English second language, I take it. With
Yes, I'm sorry, right. English is second language.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you both for coming.
You're welcome.
We're going to sneak out that way. How's that?
Can I get that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up under new business, we have a public safety report. We have our Sheriff Van Duncan and Woodfin Mayor Jerry Vehan to give us an update.
Good
Sheriff?
afternoon, Commissioners. I'd be glad to defer to the mayor and let him go first. If okay, all right.
You cover his if you want to.
A few weeks ago, we released our 2011 end-of-year report for the Sheriff's Office. It is on our website at buncombecounty.org under Sheriff's Department. And what I wanted to do today is give you just some highlights from that report. It's about 14 pages, and I would encourage anybody that has further questions to go online and drill the numbers down and take a look at what your sheriff's office is doing for you. It's been a busy year in 2011, and I want to start with patrol. In 2010, the Patrol Division answered 198 calls for service. In 2011, that was up to 58,684. So our calls for service are increasing. We held at 57,000 for a couple years in a row, but in 2011 they've moved forward, and we're on track to probably be somewhere around 59,000 calls for service this year if you're looking at the first few months starting out. Clearance rates with CID, they're still over 50% successfully cleared rates with our overall property crime, and that's the major bulk of what they do, but also the major case crimes and other crimes altogether. They're at 51% clearance rate. The state average is somewhere about 24%. They have gone up in cases investigated. In 2010, they investigated 2,445 cases, and in 2011 it was 2,754. So they have been quite a bit busier as well. BCAT, or our Buncombe County Anti-Crime Task Force, which we participate with the Asheville City Police Department. They initiated 316 cases in the task force this past year and seized $3.9 million in street-level narcotics. Civil process served 19,347 papers last year, and they served 19,794 papers this year. And detention, our bookings, we actually booked in over 15,000 people this year, and that's up from 14,488 as of last year. Sometimes it's kind of overwhelming, the enormity of what these folks do, and I have to take my hat off to them. They work extremely hard, and they're very much professionals at what they do. But when you think that the phones ring in communications for the sheriff's office a little over 200,000 times a year, it's a pretty big chore to manage. And then those are the dispatch calls. The 58,000 are the dispatch calls. Animal control, and the sheriff's office has had that for some time now, and there's 5 of those officers, and they actually answered 8,567 calls this past year, and that's down just a little bit from just over 9,000 last year. I also want to recognize our auxiliaries and our volunteers at the sheriff's office. Lieutenant Helen Hall is responsible for those folks, and they do a tremendous job. We couldn't do what we do without our volunteers and our auxiliary force, and they had 8,027 hours of service this year that saved the taxpayers $125,542 for this past year, and I'm very appreciative of them for what they do for us. Mayor?
Thank you, Van. To follow up a little bit on what Van told you about, the part I'm going to talk about is numbers of calls as far as like 911 calls. Talk a little bit about the Asheville Buncombe Arson Task Force and some other areas on some of the stuff that we do. Of course, the biggest operation we got is EMS, and in 2011, total calls was right at 24,000, of which we transported about 18,000 of those people. And this has been fairly consistent for the past 2 or 3 years, kind of like Van with his figures. Right now they're holding steady, should be about that for 2012. But anyway, when you look at the number of calls that come into the Emergency Operations Center over there, and I've got these broke down. Buncombe County Fire and Rescue, and these are just 911 calls. This doesn't include routine calls on the 7-digit number that people call for service. But Buncombe County Fire and Rescue calls, we had 22,307 of those calls. EMS, we had 24,905. These are all just 911 calls. Asheville Police Department received 99,236 911 calls. Asheville Fire and Rescue, this is strictly Asheville Fire Department. This is fire and first responder calls, 15,562. Sheriff's Department, 58,695, and that's pretty close to Van's figures on, the number of investigations and whatever you heard him talk about. for a total of 220,705 calls. That figures averages out to about 600, a little over 600 calls every 24 hours. They're 911 calls, and this doesn't include some of the regular calls that come in on top of the 911 calls. Now, when you look at in the fire marshal's office, we had they do inspections, and we also put up road signs. All these signs out in the county, they come from our office, and we put them up as we can. But anyway, we put up in 2011, not quite as many as we had been, but we still put up 213 of these signs. A lot of them are replacement signs. It's if you happen to live on a road that has some kind of catchy name to it, even though the way we put these signs up, you can't just take a screwdriver and unscrew them. Sometimes they get post, sign, and all. But anyway, and we have been able to find a few people who want these signs, and they do get charged for it. But anyway, then you look at fire inspections, and that's primarily what the fire marshal's office does. We did 1,303 inspections, 2011, and found a total violations of 2,643, and that's not a bad ratio. People are becoming a lot more fire conscious and safety conscious, and that's something that we keep striving for on a regular basis. Now, the Arson Task Force, and that's a combined city-county operation comprised of 2 whole people, one county and one city. But anyway, they investigated in 2011 107 suspicious fires. Normally, if a local fire department feels like it's something they can't handle and they want some expert assistance, they call the Arson Task Force. Cases located in the city limits was 37. Buncombe County had 69 of these. And we had one out of county. We helped with a call in Madison County. Out of the 107 investigations that they conducted, 72 of them were ruled arson, 24 accidental, 11 of them were undetermined. Last year was heavy as far as fatalities. We had 4 fatalities in fires last year, of course one of them being Captain Bowen with the Asheville Fire Department. Had the 2 in the county and 2 in the city. Juvenile fire setters, that's where you have the juveniles that have a tendency sometimes to play with fire. We had 4 of these, 1 in the city, 3 in the county, and all 4 of these were classified as arson. Residential, we had 25 arson cases, 21 of them in the county, 4 in the city. Commercial, we had 8 arson calls with 5 in the city, 3 in the county. Vehicles, had 13 of those. Brush, sometimes people just set brush fires. We had 13 of those that were classified as arson. Burning of personal property, had 6 of those. Explosive, bomb device, we had 2 of those, and Van inherited both of those. They were both in the county. Had 1 church fire that was arson. It was in the city. But to give you some idea of the arson problem that we have, it's not a great problem, but one's too many. And we constantly try to work on that, and that, in a nutshell, gives you some idea of the number of calls that we get every day, and then they're transferred to the various agencies. And also the fire marshal and what they do as far as inspections, and then the arson task force. Any questions from anybody?
Mr. Beyond, our arson task force, we started that about, 20 years ago?
About 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That was one of the first things Ron Moore did as the district attorney, wanted the arson task force.
Yeah,
and,
I remember that.
And he will prosecute arsonists, and we'd had some problems in the past where you almost had to see the arsonist with a match lit in his hand. And Ron turned all that around for us.
Good deal.
If you take all these numbers, which seems kind of astronomical to me. But if you compare us with Forsyth and Wake and Durham and New Hanover, wherever, are we ranked basically according to population? Like we're the what are we, 7th or 8th county in the state? Is that about where our numbers are?
Numbers of incoming calls, it's about in the ballpark with the population size, density. Arson, we're not as bad as some counties. We may have more than some counties, but you know that varies from year to year also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our chairman keeps calling him the Mary Woodfin, and he is that, but folks, this is the finest EMS director in the United States of America, and I've heard that said nationally. Proud of you, young man.
And was called to help with 9/11. You got an early call and worked there for how long? 3 weeks, helping sort through that. We appreciate that. All righty, next up we have Adult Care Home Report. We have Angie Pittman, Sheriff, Mayor, and Mr. Ruth. Is he here?
He is not.
He's not.
But we have a large panel. You've already introduced some of them, but we also have Wendy Sousey from CCWNC, Jennifer Chilton, and Kathy Beatty from DSS.
Wonderful.
And let us not forget Curtis Venable, our attorney with Ott, Cohen, Redpath. We can't forget.
No, you're right.
Thank you, Chairman Gant, members of the board, and Dr. Green for this opportunity to talk about our panel's perspective on the issues of adult care homes in Buncombe County. For most of you, this discussion related to the adult care home issues is not new, and that's because the members of this board have been leaders in the state in getting in front of this issue. In fact, 2 years ago, two of the commissioners, Commissioner Bailey and Peterson, were chosen to really lead this effort. And the support from this board and the county manager have been critical to moving towards solutions. And I was sitting back here thinking to myself jokingly, Commissioner Peterson, you could probably do this presentation. This is about your fourth time hearing it, so you could probably do this yourself. About a year ago, we began to dig into our data as a county related to both the human and physical impact of the issues surrounding adult care homes in our county. And we were very surprised at the results, and I think you will be surprised about these today as well. Also, in recent months, there have been a number of new events, both state and federal, that will further impact and complicate the issues we're going to talk about tonight. And Curtis will outline those in just a moment. As you know, we've attempted to address this issue locally in many ways. We've written letters to the state. We've had interagency meetings locally. We've collaborated with adult care home administrators. We have been a part of a pilot project with the state around medications. And our own Kathy Beatty was a member of the legislative task force that made recommendations to the General Assembly. Recently, we've also briefed the DSS board and our local delegation regarding this issue and the impact it has on Buncombe County citizens. So as our panel presents today, there are 4 things I would like for you to keep in mind. 1, Buncombe County has the highest number of adult care homes in the state, which stands right now at 87. At least 50% of all the residents in the homes in Buncombe County did not originate from Buncombe County. In one of the homes that you'll see in our example, 87% of the folks living in that home are non-Buncombe County residents, and they have no connections or supports here in Buncombe County. This one's a biggie. While DSS locally is responsible for monitoring adult care homes, we have absolutely no authority locally to uphold penalties or issue orders to cease admissions or to shut down facilities. That the State Department of Health Service Regulations holds that authority, and so that's a real issue in this situation. And what I don't want us to lose sight of in here today, and probably the most important, is this is anyone. This is your sister, your brother, your mother, who could be in an adult care home, and we want to make sure they're getting the quality of care they need. Judy, if you could start the PowerPoint. So tonight you're going to hear about both human and fiscal ramifications resulting from all of these events you're going to hear about. In the data that you'll see tonight, we use 3 homes who are the highest utilizers of services in our county as an example, and they're all owned by the same company. So I'm going to start with the fiscal impact. As you can see from the slide, there are a significant amount of public funds that we're using to manage this population. And keep in mind, the majority of this population are not Buncombe County residents. As you can see at the bottom there, the total is staggering. For fiscal year 11, it was almost $1 million or $78,000 a month. And that included law enforcement, EMS, DSS, the detention center, mobile crisis, and the ER department at Mission. As we continue to dig, and as you'll hear later from Major Madiabas, as we continue to analyze our data, the fiscal impact just continued to grow. We didn't keep updating this number, but you'll hear more about that in a minute. So I'm going to turn it over now to Jennifer Chilton and then Curtis Venable so that you can hear a little bit about the human impact and then the other events we have going on.
Can you just touch that? Okay, thank you. Angie's outlined the fiscal impact, but I think most importantly, human impact we need to talk about. That is to the resident themselves residing in an adult care home, in addition to community members. Talk about safety. The print's a little small, so if you'll just bear with me. Medication management is very complicated for residents receiving psychotropic drugs. The average number of medications for an individual residing in an adult care home is 15. So when residents end up in jail, on the streets, or shuffled from adult care home to adult care home, which they often do, this results in a loss of stability for their medication and behavior management, many times leading to an inpatient psychiatric hospitalization. The example that I'm going to walk you through provides you with a picture of a very common scenario that an individual experiences within our current adult care home system. The resident having been identified as appropriate to reside in the adult care home based on current rules and regulations, where there's really no alternative housing or supportive community options that are available or readily available to them who have a primary diagnosis of mental illness and with a high level of need. Typically, the individual that we encounter has a primary diagnosis of mental illness, often has a violent criminal history, and as Angie pointed out, originates from outside of Buncombe County. This cycle reveals how multiple local agencies experience and attempt to serve the individual. However, it is very much like trying to fit an unmatched puzzle piece into place. For this scenario, I'm going to portray an individual who has a history of multiple placements. So they've been in numerous adult care homes already. They have a violent criminal history and did not originate from Buncombe County. So the individual entered Buncombe County as a resident of an adult care home. A resident-on-resident assault took place. This individual's criminal history, he served a previous 7-year term in prison for murder. The chaotic living environment in the adult care home likely contributed to decompensation of the individual and escalation in behaviors. So an assault took place resident on resident. So the adult care home discharges the resident based on current rules and regulations because this individual posed a threat to the safety of others. Charges resulted. So the individual was discharged from the facility and picked up by law enforcement. Individual sent to the detention facility. 2 days later is released from the detention facility to the streets. Later, really late one evening, the individual was found by law enforcement wandering around, attempting to get back to the adult care home, where the individual didn't realize they had been discharged from, possibly didn't remember in the chaos of the arrest. Law enforcement attempts to locate shelters for the individual, they're all full. DSS gets the call. Is there anything that you can do to help us with this individual? So DSS screens the report in. the individuals identified to be either in need of adult protective services or placement services. Come to find out there's a mental health provider. The mental health provider is contacted. That mental health provider initiates an involuntary commitment. Involuntary commitment papers are filed. Law enforcement picks up the individual again. They're taken to the ER, where this individual encounters likely a long waiting period to be assessed. Two tracks happen. The individual is psychiatrically admitted, so they met the criteria for an inpatient hospitalization, or more often, the individual is psychiatrically cleared, so wasn't a candidate for inpatient hospitalization, and then the discharge planner is left trying to locate a placement for the individual, where they pick up the phone and they begin calling adult care homes again to accept placement of this individual. This cycle is prevalent. In June of 2009, a resident that was admitted to an adult care home without a criminal record check and had resided in another county prior to the Broughton stay assaulted a Buncombe County DSS staff person while applying for economic assistance. Criminal records are not required when admitting residents to adult care homes. For 3 homes used in our example today, over the course of fiscal year 11, there were 2 reported rapes, 22 reported assaults, and 5 deaths. We've seen the numbers of reported rapes and assaults increase for fiscal year 12. So in a system that is challenged to meet the needs of this population, we are caught up in this cycle. Representatives from various agencies that are impacted both in their day-to-day operations and fiscally are going to provide you with information and data to reveal a critical need for us to be solution-focused and proactive. Curtis is going to discuss with you three events that are occurring simultaneously that will further complicate the cycle that we see with adult care home residents.
Hi, I'm Curtis Venable. I'm with the firm of Otcone and Redpath, and I help the county and the Department of Social Services, particularly with health care issues. Let me, for all of us that haven't been dealing with this for the last 14, 15, 18 months, let me real quickly say adult care homes are the classic rest homes, but the facilities we're talking about are not being run by Aunt B with 6 or 7 nice elderly ladies in the facility. The large one we're talking about is licensed to have 100 beds. The population is almost exclusively made up of individuals with mental illness. A more accurate characterization of the largest facility is a private, effectively unregulated mental health hospital is really what it is, and it's best characterized. How did we get to this point? The reality is that, and there's no reason to be blaming the operators of the facilities. As they will tell you, we are housing people that have no other opportunities. The state of North Carolina has taken resources off the table. For a lot of these people, they're there because they were discharged, released from prison. It's not to say they have to come to Buncombe County. They have been evicted from homes. They burned out their stay with their families. This is sort of where, when you get to the end of the line, it's either one of these facilities or you're under a bridge, quite literally. For everybody and the folks that you will hear, we're here because the simple reality is the resources to house folks, to give them services, are not available. And at the end of the day, folks can talk about all they want about what's needed or how it's needed, but at least in North Carolina, when you get down to the default, it's at the county level. Which means if there's nothing else, as you have heard in part and you will hear in more detail in a moment, it falls to the Sheriff's Department, it falls to EMS, it falls to your Department of Social Services, it falls to your local hospital, it falls to your local area mental health authority to try and piece together something and make it work. That's made all the more difficult at this point in time by the factors you see on the slide. To state the obvious, the resources that might have been here 10 years ago don't exist, or they have been moved on to other areas. Times are tight. When a new problem arises, we would have to rob Peter to pay Paul, and maybe that's where we are. Additionally, the reality is that while a few years ago we had funds available in the Mental Health Trust Fund, those have been used in other areas across the past several years, and so that pot of funds has been diminished. As you heard Jennifer talk about in terms of adult care homes, while your Department of Social Services and other community partners have long identified these facilities, and I don't mean the ones we're talking about, but facilities who have a high concentration of individuals with mental illness as being a very dangerous setting. The Institute of Medicine released a report last year that made this very clear. This is having unregulated mental health hospitals is a bad idea. Buncombe County has tried, is trying, will continue to try to do something about it, but in reality there are responsibilities without authority, which is always a bad setup. Special assistance is a problem for the simple reason that right now the structures of special assistance encourage institutionalization. You may be disabled, you may have severe mental illness, you may need assistance with housing, with shelter, with services, but unless you institutionalize yourself, we cannot help you. That all rolls into the end with North Carolina, I guess you could say the jig being up with the federal government on a couple of different manners. The bottom line is the federal government is saying is that the warehousing of mentally ill individuals in these facilities isn't going to continue. Which, okay, that's a great thing. You know, we should have folks in appropriate settings. Should have them in humane settings. But at the end of the day, the settings we've been using have been cost-effective, cost-efficient. One could say cheap. The alternative settings are either unavailable or are not cheap. In Buncombe County, you know, we could be facing the prospect in the next 60 days of one or more of these facilities effectively being shuttered. We're talking about potentially 120 individuals with severe mental illness needing a place to live, having no access to health care, on and on and on and on. It will be a significant, difficult thing for our community. It will be happening in other communities across the state. Catawba County has a large facility. Guilford County has a large facility. But Buncombe, as you heard, is unique because of the concentration of these facilities. The last item, which is going to be causing additional concern for the commissioners and your citizens, is with all this going on, the state is changing its structures basically to try and focus on settings other than institutional settings, also trying to save some money, which is going to frighten and concern a lot of folks who are in adult care homes about how they're going to keep having their services paid for, how they're going to have their room and board paid for. That's the concerns about what's called PCS, personal care services, and the I waiver, which is a complicated Medicaid structure. Suffice it to say, the bottom line is how to pay for services that people need in their homes, which will result in some folks in adult care homes not having their services funded. Not a lot, but the point being it's going to concern and frighten a lot of people in the interim. In the end, it won't be a big deal, but it's one of those sorts of things the public is going to need some education and assistance with. But in the midst of all of this chaos, and let me also say, your Department of Social Services and your county partners here, they had been warning the state about this for a couple of years. This is coming. This is coming. What are we going to do when it gets here? It came. It has arrived. I will tell you, as you will hear, Buncombe has been trying to assess the scope of the problem, trying to plan for a response. But with that list of problems and us being sort of at the bottom of the hill, it's a tough thing to deal with. But you can now hear from the other folks as to sort of what the impacts are and how this community is trying to address these problems. Thank you.
Hello again. We have been dealing with the adult care home problem for quite some time in Buncombe County. Actually, when you go back and you look at the data and you look at the calls for service, it's been going on since before this administration took office. And if you will go to the next slide. One more. There we go. This will break down what happened last year with the 3 major adult care homes in Buncombe County. And I'm going to talk particularly about Adult Care Home A. If you look at the law enforcement response in FY10, Adult Care Home A, just by itself, which is a 100-bed care home, had 144 law enforcement responses. Now, we've worked with this care home in the past because, as Curtis described very well, it's hard to really demonize these folks because they're trying to provide a service that nobody else in the state provides. But basically what they're trying to do is run a facility for folks who would have been in an IMD, or an Institute of Mental Disease, and they're trying to run it under the rules of an adult care home, which simply isn't working, because they can't control their ingress and egress. They come and go pretty much as they please, which has really wreaked havoc on that community. And we've been hearing about it for years. If you go to the next year, in 11, you can see we responded out there for that 12 months in 237 times. And that's one care home. Let me back up just a second, and I started to bring this up in our Sheriff's Office report, but I wanted to talk about something new we were doing at the Sheriff's Office with the Buncombe County COPS team, and that's community-oriented problem-solving teams. And basically what we did to address some of these problems in the county, and they don't all deal with adult care homes, but they're those multifaceted problems that patrol and criminal investigations and our anti-crime task force aren't necessarily set up to deal with effectively. So what we've started doing since the first of the year is we've been taking 5 people from different divisions throughout the Sheriff's Office and pulling them from their daily duties for 30 days. And we've been assigning them with a problem-based learning methodology to go out here and start addressing some of these problems in the county. And the first problem we started on was this problem with this care home in Candler. You've probably heard about this problem in commission meetings and didn't realize it was stemming from the care home. You've heard about the businesses in Candler and people being there panhandling and wanting some aggressive methods to deal with those folks. And actually what you're getting is the residual from the care home, not completely, but in at least in majority, from them not being able to manage that population under the adult care home rules. So we assigned our first COPS team out into Candler and worked very closely with DSS and with the businesses in the neighborhood. And we also had a couple of community meetings out at the Inc. Fire Department to meet with that community, which is up in arms, and that's an understatement. We actually went out in 2008 and did a little advocacy work for the care home and tried to repair some relationship with the community. Things got a little better, and then as you can see with this slide, they kind of went back and increasingly got worse. So as Curtis framed it, I don't know exactly what the solution is, but I do think probably the situation of the adult care homes operating with the level of classification of folks that they have is probably going to come to an end and probably needs to. We've had several breaking and enterings in that community where the homeowner said it was just by the grace of God and a little bit of self-control that we didn't shoot this individual. And I've had several of those calls in my office. We had a lady most recently break into a home and come in, really didn't understand what was going on, broke into the home and called 911.
Oh, golly.
So that's the kind of situation you're dealing with in that community. After the COPS team worked out there for 30 days, the situation's got a little bit better. We worked the problem from the inside out as well with the adult care home and tried to come up with some workable solutions for them to where they could better manage the population, to control that just a little bit better, running a shuttle, doing those kind of things to the stores, because that's where a lot of the problem occurs from. And I don't want to take too much of your time, but I do think that it's extremely important that everybody understand kind of the crisis that we're in, especially with this particular adult care home and the community that they're a part of out there. At this time, I'm going to have Major Glenn Matiabas come up and talk with you about county costs associated with detention.
Could get that next slide. Just real quick, I want to show you some other numbers that are there. Certainly that Angie talked about initially for FY11, which is the $21,293, and how we get that cost for those numbers. You can see that we had 29 bookings that were there, and they stayed in custody for 199 days. For us, we analyzed the cost for 1 day in custody is $107. Well, one of the things that was a bit glaring, rather than all those numbers at the top, even though as we continue to review this, the last time there were a total of 65 arrests just from those 3 adult care homes that were there that we identified. But the thing that was the most glaring is what I saw was once they came into the criminal justice system. The 65 arrests that you see there, what we also saw was generally what will happen is if they get released from the care home, where do they go? Well, the problem is that we try to find some kind of placement. But for some of them, what ends up happening is they keep coming back in the detention facility again and again and again. So the 148 that you see there is the other additional arrests that they came back into custody. So when we take a look at the overall cost, rather than that being at $51,000, you see that overall cost for the 148 bookings that we had with the length of stay of 8.31 days actually cost us $131,000. So again, it's just that cycle and again that human effect that we do see. And again, we realize that these are people, and again, what do we do as far as the placement when they can't go to these homes? It's a very difficult situation. Could you go to that next slide, please? And then very quickly, I just wanted to go ahead and show you what are the type of things that we're dealing with once law enforcement gets on the scene, once they're in custody, the specific charges that relate from that. And again, as the sheriff related to with the cops team, that there was a great need and an outpouring from the community. The number one charge that we have from these care homes is simple assault, which that averaged 20.48%. The second top charge that we had from the top 7 that were listed, we had 9 secondary trespasses. Then we had 8 assault on a female, 6 resisting a public officer once the officers made contact on the scene where they would still resist. We had 5 possession of marijuana less than half an ounce, 4 disorderly conducts, and 3 assault with a deadly weapon charges that were there for those particular of those 78 charges that we took a look at. The characteristics of those inmates that were in custody, obviously, as we talked about here, you have those that were mental subjects, suicidal. We place on a special watch because they have special needs in the facility. They're disabled, many of them diabetic and homeless. So we think the county's work and the commissioner's work as far as with RHA, we do a lot of case management for those folks. But the real question is once they come into the criminal justice system and we deal with the charges, where do they go? As you can take a look at, for most of these, most of the sentences that are there for misdemeanors, the most that they're going to end up spending in custody is 20 days. So after the 20 days, where do they go? The cops team has been very effective, but one of the things that I think that the detention facility was doing, as you can recall from the incident that they spoke about earlier, where they came into custody for 2 days and were released, we took a look at those folks that were from these care homes, and what we decided is that we had to manage them a bit in the detention facility. So what that's meaning is the length of stay that they spend in jail is going to be quite a bit until we can find some kind of placement or exactly what is going to happen. We'll either have these folks stable, can we get them some other care, but we know that that system is broke in this state when it comes to mental health. So again, we're very fortunate what we do here in our county, and certainly very appreciative of the resources that we do have and the work certainly with RHA, the very proactive approach that our county has taken as far as to work with diversion in the jails and most importantly with other services, so certainly with DSS and again that collaboration and partnership. So again, we do appreciate that.
Okay, this is looking at the EMS and fire first responder calls, a number of them. Of course, adult care home A is the one that we've been extremely concerned about. And if you look up there in FY10, we made 66 runs to that one facility, but then coming along in FY11, that increased up to 165. If you come across and look at the cost of service, for FY10 was $57,638, and in FY11 was $95,944. And going back once more, and you've heard Van and talk about the adult care home A. This year, in 2012, as of 2 o'clock today, EMS and fire had been to this one particular adult care home 58 times, and Van won the drawing on this. They've been out there 95 times. So, you know, it's getting to be back in that same rut again, but certainly we're hoping that what's coming, maybe the state's going to tackle this project and give DSS some authority to do what they're responsible for. It'd be like Sheriff's Department going out and saying, well, we're going to patrol your neighborhood, but we can't arrest anybody. Yeah. You know, it's a problem for us. We started a couple of months ago on the EMS side, and I don't have the figures yet, but what insurance is not paying for these people with this one particular adult care home A, we're building the facility for the difference. And we're also, where we'd had problems before with some of the residents out there dialing 911 on calls that weren't true 911 calls. If they do that, continue to do that, we're going to charge them with abuse of 911. But what's interesting about that, from the day that we started that procedure, this stuff has fallen off as far as the abusive calls or not needed calls, and maybe that's starting to make a difference. Don't know yet. We don't have enough data.
Hello.
Hello.
I am Wendy Salzy, and I work with Community Care of Western North Carolina, and we are a nonprofit that's one of 14 networks under the Community Care of North Carolina umbrella, and we provide care management services for Medicaid beneficiaries and some individuals who are uninsured, and previously and historically have not worked with a lot of adult care home residents. However, in the past year, that has changed, and there has been a push for adult care home residents to be enrolled in Carolina Access Medicaid, which is the population that we work with. And generally what we are working toward is better quality care for Medicaid beneficiaries, and also looking at systems, collaboration with individuals and agencies to try to make the systems more efficient and thus more cost effective for everyone involved. We have 8 counties that we work with, Buncombe being one of them. I will say, before I talk about the numbers, that I have had a chance to talk on a state level with different counties, and Buncombe really is a leader. So that says a lot about your DSS and a lot about all the entities that have been involved. And so we're really looked at people across the state say, what's Buncombe County doing? What I would like to do today is to kind of pull back a little bit and look at Medicaid expenditures for these adult care homes. And I think what I have done here in this chart is provided Buncombe County numbers. So you'll see there the Buncombe County, the total number of Medicaid expenditures for Buncombe County for this population is over $11 million. And then I've broken it down by, and these are from Medicaid claims data. It's from June 1, 2010 through July 1, 2010 through the end of June 2011. And we've broken it down from the inpatient, that's what IP, the inpatient visits, emergency room visits, and pharmacy Medicaid claims. And I've taken that. You'll see the first column is the Buncombe County numbers. We've looked, as you've heard, there's been kind of 3 highlighted facilities within this presentation by everyone. So I took those 3 highlighted facilities, and as you can see, the total population in terms of the percentage of the residents that these have are 11% of the adult care home residents in the county. However, if you look at their Medicaid expenditures, there's 29% of these expenditures, over $3 million, are spent at these 3 facilities. We talked about the one facility that I think has been referenced several times, and while they have 8%, around 8% of the total adult care home residents in Buncombe County, they spend 23% of the Medicaid expenditures. It increases if you look up at it's almost 30% of the inpatient Medicaid expenditures, and it continues to increase to almost 35% when you look at ER visits. So it kind of adds to that cycle. And if you look at the money, it's quite a bit of money that we're looking at here to look at. And so we're really excited to be part of, as community care, part of the pilot and looking at how to best affect this. And hopefully this data we can show you both just the expenditures, but show us where to target and look at how we can make some changes in policy and help the facilities look at what they're doing in terms of their spending and help the residents not have to go through the cycle that Jennifer talked about that happens so continuously. So thank you.
Unfortunately, Donald Roos with Western Highlands Network wasn't able to be here this evening, and I'm going to go ahead and I think for time constraints, we'll quickly go through. Obviously, the dynamics of this population are very difficult for a community to understand, a community that's frustrated. They continue to express concerns, and with the continuing assessments of IMD, the concerns for the personal care services, and the eligibility criteria to change, we are going to continue to see increased community concern. We anticipate an increased number of facility complaints. So for DSS's responsibility to investigate facility complaints, the obvious need for alternative placements, because we fully anticipate placement disruptions. We anticipate potential increase for DSS to provide guardianship assessment services and petitioning, and an increase in our adult protective services reports, which is a potential correlating increase in staffing needs and additional funds. The needs of this population are much greater than the thresholds for the standards and regulations that were established in policy and law. We continue to work locally to effect improvements and change. However, there are areas that we view would be advantageous to advocate for changes and require state support in order to do so. Housing alternatives with additional community supports to meet the needs of this population is vital. State and federal proposed solutions are incorporated in the co-location task force report, which are included at the end of our reported information. Each element of the report addresses the challenges that we are experiencing locally. This is an ongoing concern not only for the safety of the residents and the community, but we also feel that we would be fiscally negligent if we don't work towards the solution. With the momentum of the recent events, for the U.S. Department of Justice findings, the 1915 I waiver, and the assessments and determination of institutes of mental disease, we invited and requested assistance from our local legislative delegation, and the submission of a local bill is currently being considered. Kathy is going to outline and summarize the work of our adult care home pilot group and what we have incorporated and recommended, proposed in that local legislative bill.
It's actually going to be me.
Oh, I apologize.
Because we're going to wrap up really quickly. So we have submitted, with Curtis Venable's help, a recommendation that would allow us locally to work very closely together between DSS, CCWNC, and Western Highlands. And what that would allow us to do is to address quality of care issues for the residents. We would have an intense focus on enrolling them with CCNC in order to have some savings. We would also make sure there's a comprehensive assessment prior to admission, so that folks are placed when they should be placed, and a coordinated plan of care with all residents. We have a local group that's also worked on housing options, and we think we're as ready as we can be for this issue. There are other solutions in the PowerPoint, but we don't have time to go over those. We're happy to answer any questions either now or after the meeting. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Angie. Sounds like a big problem. Is it like this all over the state? Everybody?
I would say in pockets, yes.
We've got the numbers.
For
though,
us,
obviously.
the numbers are the issue, and the fact that we have so many people coming from other counties, huge issue for us.
Seems like we haven't we discussed this before, where the people get the out-of-state people to come in here, and and we end up having to pay the local taxpayer money to support them?
The original issue that brought it before this commission were individuals coming from South Carolina into facilities in Buncombe County, and we worked with a local delegation. Senator Nesbitt sponsored a bill that got stuck in committee because it meant money and because it happened in the midst of pieces of mental health reform. We bring it back at this point because we really do need both this board and the community to understand the complexity of this issue, the cost to our taxpayers in serving citizens who have no relationship to Buncombe County, and that we locally, either you as a board or DSS as a monitoring entity, have no control over that. But our actual local taxpayers are left to pay the cost of that. I think the committee's done an amazing job of also outlining it borders on unethical in the sense that it's not the clinically correct placement for these individuals. And so the long-term outcome, as Major Matiabas made the point, is we see these individuals cycle in and out of our court systems and in and out of jail, and they're not receiving the care they need. So from both a fiscal and a clinical perspective, we really believe it's reached critical mass. We have been the voice on this issue for years with the state. We've written letters. We've tried to appeal. That's a really interesting thing. We monitor these homes. We make recommendations of actions. The state makes the final decision, and we do not even have the right to appeal those decisions. We have absolutely no authority but total responsibility for monitoring, and it really is an issue we feel like that we as a community have to keep forcing for action on a state and to some extent federal level, but primarily state level. All of our local delegation participated in conversations, and they are all jointly helping us sponsor a local bill to at least say there has to be a better way to do this. There just has to be. And, you know, just the issue of individuals who get placed in communities and they have no relationships in those communities. So when you are on the street, you don't have a sister or a mother or a place you used to live to contact. You have absolutely no relationship. And these facilities recruit these individuals from state prisons, from mental health hospitals, and bring them across the state to facilities or across state lines to facilities in communities where they have no relationships. I would just make the point, Wendy did a great job of talking about the medications, but you're also talking about individuals who are severely mentally ill, as many as 15 medications on average apiece, and they live in facilities that are not skilled nursing. There are no trained medical personnel in place in those facilities. I think it's probably the most tragic outcome of mental health reform in North Carolina is the issue you've heard about tonight.
Thank you.
I think it's just there's so many things to say about it, and I know that the hour is late, but I think that the taxpayers of Buncombe County and the citizens of Buncombe County need to know that this is at critical mass, and they need to know the departments that are affected in Buncombe County, and they need to know how individual taxpayers are affected. We want to be a destination. You know, Buncombe County, Asheville wants to be a destination, but this is not what we want to be a destination known for, that folks who need care come here because of the number of nursing homes that we have here. We need to take care of Buncombe County citizens, and I think we do a terrific job of that. But the care that we give to Buncombe County citizens should not be jeopardized because we have folks who are coming here who have no ties, as Mandy has said, to Buncombe County. We still do a heck of a good job taking care of them. But we are really responsible for the folks in Buncombe County, and this is a pressing problem. And I think the more we talk about it, and the more people locally and in Raleigh and in Washington take this on, the better our citizens are going to be, and that's what we need to be all about. It's tragic.
Yeah, I felt real good about your reports about keeping the right people in jail, but when there's nowhere else for them to go, I guess you don't have much choice, do you?
It's tragic.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Lord, I truly don't know what I want to say. Kind of mess like this, but how do we allow this to happen? To come in here from out of state, and do they enroll themselves in these homes, or these homes recruit them? We can't put them on a bus and send them back?
They recruit them.
I do think
the homes recruit these people out of South Carolina, and they become our property.
And because other states don't offer the same level of service that North Carolina does in terms of special assistance, they can come in the homes, take them prior to their being eligible for Medicaid, understanding they will eventually be eligible for Medicaid. I do think one thing that this board has the voice and the ability to do is to weigh in, and I'd encourage that via a letter with both the County Commissioners Association and our local delegation about how critical this issue is. There is not another county in the state who has the data available to them that we've shared with you tonight. It's become the most sought after data in the state. I think we have the business case as well as the human case that we can make that the system issue has to be addressed on a state level, and I really would encourage and hope this board, I mean, you did in the beginning with letters to the local delegation and the County Commissioners Association, but use the power and influence you have to have our voices heard in Raleigh on this.
Well, I have this problem tomorrow. The state board of directors meet. I can't go because the MSD is meeting tomorrow to talk about water. And I need to be there because I'm on that board and on that planning board for that. But I want this to get to David and that whole board down there.
That would be very helpful.
And let them see what's happening. That we need help. I mean, this whole state needs help. But if we've got these numbers that can,
we have the highest
show
number.
them what we're doing, we need to get it down there.
Thank you very much.
We will get it there.
Well, by consensus, let's just instruct the county manager to draft a letter detailing this, and then to request a presentation
to the board of directors.
Board of directors of the county commission, the state group.
Second that.
Good.
Whatever we need to do.
Okay, by consensus, we do that.
Yes,
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the presentation. Sorry for the bad news, but we need to know about it because we got to deal with it. It's taxpayers' money. We got to be good stewards of it. All right. Next up, we have Nursing Home Community Advisory Committee. We have 4 vacancies, and we have any nominees? 4 vacancies.
Chairman, I nominate Cesar Romero.
Okay. Any other nominations? All those in favor of Mr. Romero being appointed, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. He is appointed by a 4-0 vote. Commissioner Jones has left the building.
Elvis has left the building.
Any other, let's see here. I think we have vacancies on the Montreat Board of Adjustment, 1 vacancy from the ETJ. Montreat Planning and Zoning, 1 vacancy, ETJ. And ETJ is extraterritorial jurisdiction, which is the area around the city that is kind of a no man's land. It's where they basically have the right to plan their activities, but they do not have a representative, and this is a way to try to compensate for that. Historic Resource Commission, we have one vacancy, and we would encourage anyone who has interest in those to apply. Announcements. The next regular meeting of the board will be May 1st, beginning at 9:30. Commissioner meetings can be seen on BCTV Charter Cable Channel 2, ATT Uverse Channel 99, live on buncombecounty.org during the meetings, or online anytime at buncombecounty.org. Mr. Frew, will we have a closed session tonight?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We have one item, a matter of attorney-client privilege of seeking direction from the board pursuant to 143-318-11A, number 3.
Wow, that's a lot of numbers.
Okay. Official business of the county is concluding. We'll now hold public comment. Time limit for any comment to the board is 3 minutes. If your time expires, then you may leave any question along with your name, address, phone number, and or email with the county manager. Board members are not expected to comment on matters during public comment. Comments should be limited to subjects that are within the jurisdiction of this commission and pertain to matters upon which we may act. Any individual speaking during public comment shall address the entire board. Any polling of board members is inappropriate. Persons addressing the board are expected to observe the decorum of the chamber and be respectful of everyone in the room. Any person who willfully interrupts, disturbs, or disrupts the session will be asked to leave the meeting. The board reserves the right to deny public address on any subject previously presented to the board. Let's go ahead and take public comment. Any public comment? Mr. Yelton. And Dr. Bird, you'll be next.
I'll be first since I'm sitting next to the mic. Well, Buncombe County is finally first in something. Don't want to be first in that, do we? But I think the first step in getting some attention to this problem is to actually look at the total cost that this is costing the residents of this county and make that available to the residents. Because I think when the residents start calling legislatures in Raleigh, you'll get more action even than you will. You're important, but I think the people can help you in that effort. I'd like to see you do that. I also heard a report talk about ozone today in the health department. And I'd like to point out the last time I studied ozone in this area, we found that the ozone concentration by the state was monitored in 8-hour increments. They did not record it hourly because they average it 8 hours, because the highest peak of ozone is in the morning, in the early morning, which proves that we live in a valley in the mountains. When it gets cool of a night, that cold air pushes down everything that's blown in here and everything that's generated here. So we do have a special situation there. Also, I'd like to request that, I know that we've made a request that the hazardous waste sites in the county be identified and a list be provided to the residents. And I think if you check your minutes, that was requested.
It is available on the state sites.
Okay, so everything in the county is on the state site. But put that on the county site so we can go to it, because I would also like to have a report from the health department how many wells are contaminated. I just learned that a well in a neighborhood next to where I live was contaminated when they started to sell the house. They had to treat the water. That may be from coliform, which is from any warm-blooded mammal, but it'd be nice to know where you have those problems. It would be pointing the things out. I'd like to also talk about something that was in the consent agenda. First and foremost, I suspect something is going on when we turn that street over to the city of Asheville in front of the courthouse. I just make that a public record, a document. Let's just wait and see if something don't happen in 12 months that shows that had to happen before the city could do what they wanted to do. Secondly, we are buying a piece of property that is on the tax rolls for $561,000 for $300,000. You also, in your consent agenda, got a grant of $280,000, so it's not going to cost you any money. I mean, money that you get from the state is free, and nobody had to give it to anybody. But my concern is, if we have a piece of property that's valued at $561,000, and we purchase it for $300,000, we know we just had 2 hotels in Asheville that sold for about 40% of what they were actually appraised at. Is this a sign of things to come when we do the reval? And if it is, where are we going to get the money for the projects that we need?
Thank you, Mr. Yelton. Dr. Bird?
I don't reply. No.
Thank you. Dr. Milton Bird. Healthcare is a very important issue for this county. We just got through having an amazing discussion on it.
And I've spent a lot of my time in my professional career looking at problems similar to this. And I've got to looking at what was presented, and it was excellent documentation on the issue. But I got to thinking about how do we address this problem. And I want to put this to Sheriff Duncan, and I spoke with Gibby Harris, Director of Mental Health Services, and I would like to present an idea to you as well as our attorney, Mr. Fry, and Dr. Green, County Manager. It's called Mutual Aid Protocols. It is a legal framework and the legal resources of law enforcement of working together with other jurisdictions. There is a pathway there that we're beginning to approach looking at state regulation. How do we create some type of mutual aid across the state to address this healthcare issue? And it dawned on me, look, we've got a long practice history in law enforcement of mutual aid. Yet clearly we don't have the resources ourselves to handle this scope of problem. Yet in mutual aid protocols within the state is an opportunity to look at framing up the idea of how do we take our current protocols and move them into an interconnection and interdependent process of mutual aid. I hope that makes sense, because to me, I see the real challenge and importance of it. And I certainly know we've got to find a way to handle this, because it can break our financial back, period, if you look at mental health reform. I'm going to shift to other subjects here, knowing I've just got over a minute left. Often I have tried to communicate about, issues of communication, like here at the podium. I look at issues of how the public mindset is imprinted about what does not get communicated. And often I've heard this not only here, but almost every governance I've ever looked at and sat at, and it has to do with something like the consent agenda. Whereas a lot of time there's no feedback prior to a consent agenda's approval. Often there's been the challenge of putting public input, trying to get that as part of consent agenda when you have that subject. And it's a choice. It is a governmental choice. The thing is, when you don't have the communication going with some of the issues that come in consent agenda, it leaves the impression of what I call bureaucratic coercion. Intended or not, what is perceived is if you don't talk to us about it, then you're trying to pull something over our eyes. I'm not trying to make an accusation here. I'm demonstrating how. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Byrd. Any other public comment tonight? Joe?
Just very quickly, I hadn't planned on saying anything, but I wanted to thank the board for your recognizing of foster care tonight. My daughter, Leslie, and her husband, a couple of years ago, decided to take in a couple of children. And it was a very difficult decision, and one that I myself even questioned, because I wanted them to do the right thing. And it was just an amazing thing for them to take two children into their home. And one of them now refers to me as Papaw, which it's just an amazing thing, and it was a transformation in our home and our life. So I want to thank you for doing that. And also, my mother came down I brought my mother recently down here from West Virginia, and she is in a nursing home here in Aston Park in the dementia unit. She came through Pisgah, and what I heard tonight was alarming to me, and information that we needed to know, and even in my own community, that some of it I wasn't even aware of. But my mother had to receive, and I think this is the right initials for it. It was a PAR number that North Carolina had to come either to send a representative or get a representative to come to West Virginia. I brought my mother here because of the quality of care that I knew she could receive here, and most of her family is now here. And they had to come and give her a number before she could even go into that facility. And it happened pretty quickly. And so I don't know if there's something there regarding that number, the PAR number, and how it was received, or it's too easy, or it's too fast, or it's something. And I thought it was an inconvenience at the time, but it doesn't sound like it's an inconvenience. And And it might be something from a point of information they might be able to speak to you about and maybe help regarding that. But that's all I had. I wanted to thank you for the foster care and stepping up on that today.
Thank you, Mr. Belcher. Any other comment? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Jenny Roper. I am a student at the University of North Carolina in Asheville. This is actually the first County Commissioners Board meeting that I have attended. And prior to coming, I looked at some of the environmental interests, perhaps because that is a particular interest of mine, and I would just like to thank the board for its involvement with I believe it was the January 17th meeting, the limiting light pollution, and I was also talking to Mr. Crichton before the meeting, and we were discussing the landfill gas to energy project that is going on, and I am very appreciative of that and very interested in the future trajectory of that and similar projects. Thank you.
I think we're having an opening for that, are we not?
27th.
of April, and that's open to the public. Okay. We'd love to have you and UNCA.
I will definitely attend. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment? Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Is there any plan to engage Homeward Bound and the Homeless Coalition in working with DSS and Western Highlands to assist in the housing creation support? That'd be a good way of looking at it there. I would like to say that this is not a new issue. I don't know why it's such an alarming thing today. I have brought this to your attention about the housing of the adult care home years back. I've even asked you to write a letter to the Commissioners Association about this very thing. I can go back and pull the tape on it. I'm talking about years ago. I ain't talking about a year or two. I'm talking about years ago I did this. It took years to ever get anybody to stabilize themselves, even on the home care board. And even the chairman of the home care board said that he couldn't even get a commissioner to attend their meeting for 5 straight years. And I brought that to your attention, and Mr. Bailey finally agreed to serve on that board, and I've seen some things happen. Now, North Carolina Institute of Medicine, I went down there and videoed the meetings for one day on that very subject, and I followed that. I was even asked to serve on that board, and I come back and told you commissioners that I did not want to serve on that board because they wasn't supporting, the state wasn't supporting the people in these homes and the problems that the people had went out. I'm talking about these volunteers had spent hours and hours. They'd went out to do a great job of getting what needed to happen, and it went nowhere for years. I'm talking about years. I can show you on your own records in your minutes where the family care home has brought these issues to your attention, and I don't want to see this thing to come as a Democrat and Republican thing in an election year about who did what. But I'm going to tell you one thing, if it does, the Democrats are in trouble because this thing started in 2001, and it began again in 2003 when Western Highland became an LME, and now the Western Highlands has become a waiver, and it's supposed to be even better than ever. And let me tell you, if you think you've seen anything bad yet, just wait, because it ain't got there yet. And I think Mandy and I can agree on that. She knows that I serve my time with the LME board, and I bring these issues there, and I bring them to her, and I can see the stress on our county, and I think this county has put a lot of money, millions of dollars into this, and I think the focus needs to be on the state, period.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Any other public comment tonight? Yes, ma'am.
I don't know your name, so I'm just going to say board members. Thank you.
What's you go ahead and give your name, though. We'd like to.
My name's Heidi Dorff. I'm from Weaverville, And this is a communication device that I've had to make for my daughter because she has no other form of communication than to flip these switches. But this gives her access to all of the letters of the alphabet, which in essence gives her access to anything. It gives her access to what she would like to eat at a restaurant. It gives her access to, obviously, to language. She's in North Buncombe school system. She's been there since she's 3 years old. She's now 11 years old. The bike that you saw her roll in on is something that's new to her. She has cerebral palsy, and so she can't walk. And before that, she was just in basically chairs that had wheels, but she couldn't move her body. Now she has functional movement of her body. And you can write this down. She has a series of YouTube videos that I have made for her that also just brings awareness, because I have a nonprofit organization called Haveability, and I'm trying to bring awareness to her condition because I've learned a lot as a parent. And some of my knowledge has been even more valuable, I think, than some of the medical professionals has been able to provide, or even the educators. I do have a nursing background. But the website, not the website, the YouTube is my daughter's name, which is Bhakti, B-H-A-K-T-I. That means devotion, but it's Bhakti, apostrophe S, Bhaktis, and then the word locomotion. And if you type that into YouTube, you'll find a series of 10 videos. The reason I'm doing these videos is, again, to create awareness, but my daughter now has functional movement with her bike. And for 2 days now, she has been out of school because of this bike, because the school system has told me that that is not going to be her wheelchair. And I have her backpack here with me because we actually went to Angie Pittman's office today, but she was here instead of there. I guess, I have 1 more minute, or?
No, I actually, just if you'll finish up your thought. And
I thought I said 1 more minute. Okay.
I'd be glad to.
Okay, so.
If you want to leave your name and number with any questions.
Okay. Yeah, so the thought is just that I'm just a concerned parent because I don't want to get caught into truancy, and I don't want to get caught into a diligent parent because it's so opposite of who I stand for and what I am. But the school is telling my child she can't have locomotion, but all the other students and the teachers can, and that's not something I'm willing to accept. And so they've told me to not bring her to school with, her new wheelchair.
We'll be glad to coordinate you with the school board members that are responsible, and of course, the
right,
principals.
But they protect the school, and their interests are the school, and I don't know who protects the parents and the child's interests is the question. So I'm just sharing knowledge with you all.
Thank you, ma'am.
But anyway, my phone number. Did you say to leave my information?
No, we're about through. Well, I just wanted you to finish up. Everybody gets 3 minutes. Okay. But thank you, Heidi, and we will do. If you will leave your name and number, we'll try to coordinate with you and make sure you get that. Just leave that over there at the end of the meeting will be good. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Souther?
Hi, my name is Linda Southard. I'm a resident of Candler, and I also was very alarmed hearing the report today about the home, which is very close to where I live. But more concerning to me is the fact that our county residents are having their lives, possibly, their property put at risk, sounds like on a daily basis, and the amount of money that the county is throwing at this is unbelievable. And I think rather than concentrating on being a leader in the area of doing this and having pilot programs of how to handle this, and along that line, I would rather see us deal with this at the state level where we can stop these people from coming in. If they are not county residents, why are the county people having to pay all this money and again have their lives and property put at risk to take care of this problem? I think the problem needs to be looked at the state level, and we need to fix it and stop them from coming here and stop our money going to them. So.
Thank you, Ms. Southern.
I'm cold-hearted.
Okay, Mr. Fryer?
Scant, Commissioners. I have something in my hand here that, yep, AB Tech, I guess, paid the bill for the election. But I have a cashier's check for $89,800.21, but it don't say who it's from. So who bought this election? That's what I'd like to know. You know, I asked to be paid, but now we don't pay it with a foundation check, or we didn't pay it with a jobs check. We did it with a cashier's check. And somebody, you know, you can take cash in and get a cashier's check. You can take somebody's check in and get a cashier's check. So at the present time, someone has bought this election, that referendum that we had. Tomorrow I am filing a complaint with the State Board of Elections because I understand the Solutions for Jobs had $4,000 in an account. Don't know if they paid it. Don't know if the foundation paid it. But all I do know is there's letters out there from AB Tech asking people to put money in the foundation because kids need education and they need gas to get to school. If they've put another $90,000 into this, that means they put 20 in to start with. They put another 75 in. They put another 11,500 in. And now if they put this in, that school has paid $200,000 to win $137 million from the people of Buncombe County for the next 17 years. As I said before, it was in the wrong election. My complaint to Raleigh will be, this needs to be axed. It can be put on the ballot in November, and we'll have a real vote on it. But if you want to see the check, a copy of the check, I have it. And it's not good. I don't understand why people would have to get a cashier's check when we know that there's two people involved, the college and Job Solutions. So if somebody had enough money to go in and get this check, that's wrong. It's hidden money for the present time. So y'all need to look into it. Y'all the one that got it going. There's people in the room that supported it, and there's people in the room that didn't support it. 500 votes don't make it. Have a good one.
Thank you, Mr. Fryer. Any other public comment tonight?
Move we go into closed session.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed, no. The motion carries 4-0. We will not be taking action, I think, did you
Correct.
say earlier?
Yes, sir.
After closed session. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's fine. You are ahead, Heidi. That's fine. Beautiful little girl.
Goes straight from the physician to the facility, and it doesn't
We're gonna
make
push
the
you out for closed if y'all
Oh,
can
I'm
talk
sorry.
out there.
Sorry.